Why is my snake sleeping in the water dish? Well, in this video I'm going to tell you all the reasons why your snake would be in the water dish. And most importantly, is it a problem or is it not? There are 4 main reasons why your snake will bathe in or soak in a water dish. This is all of them. I've got Popcorn, my Kahl Sunglow Boa, is currently submerged in the water dish. It's not normal behaviour for her, so I'm going to check everything and run it along with you guys. Some of these reasons are problems, some of these reasons are not. So you want to stay tuned right the way to the end, just to see if it's the same for you. If you've come across this video, chances are you have the same questions I do. Let's run through and help you out. But before we start, welcome to Northern Exotics. We're a reptile YouTube channel that absolutely thrives on education so that everyone can't make the same mistakes that I make. If you want to talk all things reptile along with me, please consider subscribing. And while you're there, if you can hit the thumbs up button, I'd greatly appreciate it. So back to the video in question anyway. Why is my snake submerged in water and she's currently asleep in there at the moment? Well, there's 4 main causes. Number 1, the temperatures are wrong. The temperatures could be extremely too high. Now, for some species of snake, if your temperature gets to 100 degrees Fahrenheit, that could be a lethal temperature for some snakes. So that's one thing we're going to check first. And to check it, we're going to use one of these. If you want to know what this is, it is just a temperature gun. It's got a laser on the end of it. And it's got a temperature reading on the back of it. You can change the temperature reading from Celsius to Fahrenheit. And it's got a cool little laser, as you can see, just there. Absolutely amazing piece of kit. You can turn the laser off and all this sort of stuff. If you want to know more about these, I'll do an Amazon link in the description below if you want to go and take a look at them. But we're going to whack this straight on the hot spot of Popcorn's enclosure and just see what it comes up like. There she is, completely submerged with her head poking out. But the first job is the hot spot. And see, look, absolute perfect temperature, 88, 89 Fahrenheit. So we know the temperature is absolutely perfect and that's not the problem. If your temperature is too hot, turn your thermostat down. Keep checking it every half an hour just to keep a really good eye on the temperature until it's perfect, because temperature changes every now and then. Thermostats can regulate a little bit. That sort of thing happens. If you want to know what a thermostat is, I'll stick a card just up here or over here or wherever it's going to pop up, and that'll explain thermostats to you, because some people don't use thermostats, and to this day I still don't know why. I know they're expensive, but they can save not only electric, they can save your animal's life, and it's just problem free. You don't have to do a lot of work, it does a lot of the work for you. What a thermostat does, it basically regulates the temperature to whatever you set it at. So in there, she's on a pulse proportional thermostat on a ceramic heat element. I have it set at a certain temperature and it's perfect at that temperature at the minute. That's perfect. If your temperature is different, obviously adjust it and stuff like that, but that is one thing. She could be cooling down in the water. So number two could be the humidity. And for most species of snake, humidity is vitally important, especially in boa constrictors, well, every pet reptile. Humidity is extremely important, and it's often looked upon as just people don't even understand it a lot of the time. Again, I've done an awful lot of videos on humidity for your animals, not just each individual animal, but why it's so important as well. So if you want to click subscribe, go through my videos, have a look, you'll find something there that's useful for you guys. But the boa constrictor that's here is just a Kahl Sunglow Boa, and it does have a humidity requirement of 60 to 85% humidity. So we'll go in and check that now. And quite simply, there's a couple of ways of checking it. Just there on the wall is a hygrometer. You can use that. I have a couple in every one of my enclosures, but that one you can't really see. I've got it so you can see the top and everything, but that is reading just lower than 50%. Let's go and check the hot side temperature. And right there, guys, is my problem. There we go. That hygrometer is 40. That's my problem. My humidity is not correct in there. So there's loads of ways you can increase the humidity along with decrease the humidity. Again, as always, I've done a few videos on this, so go back and have a look and you'll find something. But I have to increase the humidity in there, and there's a couple of ways I can do that. You can block off some ventilation to keep the humidity in there, or you can mist down the enclosure a little bit more regular. So here in the UK, it's coming up to summer. the humidity is dropping a little bit in the UK, so I need to start racking up the humidity in there just a little bit more than normal. She gets sprayed down twice a week to keep it at a 70% humidity. Now, I'm going to have to, if it's dropped down to 40 on the hot side and 50 on the cold side, I'm going to have to up that routine to 3 times a week now. I'm glad I've spotted it dead quick. She's in the water dish, it's a cracking sign. A lot of people would see her in the water dish, just think, oh, she's bathing. There's always a reason why she's bathing. Why? But I found this problem. It might not be the only problem, so I'm going to run through the next 2. Next is number 3, which is shedding. Now, all pet reptiles, especially snakes, they shed their skin. And that is simply because their skin doesn't grow, it's not elasticated like ours. It's not even skin, it's scales. And they shed it off so that they can grow a bit more. Sometimes if the humidity is incorrect, their body can't absorb all of the moisture that it does need to help them shed. But the way they do shed, they basically put a layer of moisture between their new skin and their old skin, and that helps to lubricate it so that they can come off. And the way to check if she is going into shed is simply, are the eyes going a bit blue? Is she going a bit opaque in her colouring? And she looks pretty good, but it could be the early signs of going into shed. Now, if her humidity is incorrect, then she's not going to shed properly, she's not going to absorb the moisture that she needs. So that could be an extremely good indicator that she is going into shed and she's in the water dish to gain that moisture. So with me upping the humidity in there and her in the water dish, she should have a perfect shed. But then this goes on to another matter of, does any of your snakes always have bad sheds? Are they shedding in little bits here and there? Are they always having retained eye caps or nostril flares? Up the humidity. That's as perfect as that is. I want to ask you all a question then, but answer honestly. Do you know, pick one animal in your collection, or have you only got one snake or anything like that? Comment below. What is the humidity for your animal? Do you know? Have you done the research on it? Because that is vitally important. But then we go on to the one that everybody hates, number 4, mites. I don't know why, guys, but I've never ever had mites. Never. But again, they go into the water dish. Mites are like fleas for snakes. Basically, they're like fleas for snakes. Check that out. Bubble, bubble, bubble. And a lot of the time, they go into the water dish if they do have mites to try and drown the mites. Now, that's the way they would do it in the wild. They would go into a stream, a river, drown the mites. They'll sleep there for the day. As you can tell with Popcorn, they are in the water. Their nose is normally poking out just like hers is, just there. So they are perfectly adapted for going into the water if they need to. But that is how they would get rid of it in the wild. Now, if they go into the rivers, the streams, the pools, the ponds, all that, drown all the mites on their body, great, bonus, they've done it. They get out, they can go and live their happy life. However, in captivity, in an enclosure, those mites are in the enclosure. So they can drown all the mites off, they'll come out of the water bowl, they'll just get covered in mites again because the mites are also in the enclosure. I've never really had to deal with mites, I've never had them before, but the way to check if you've got them is basically get her out of the water. You should see the little black mites on the floor, on the bottom of the water dish. You can put her in a bath for 20 minutes, half an hour, and then check underneath in the water to see if there's any little black dots. That's normally the mites. You can have a very close inspection of the actual animal itself, and you'll see them walking around. Check just inside their lips, because that's normally one place where they love to hide. But again, like I've said, I check these once a month and I have never had mites. I don't know why, but comment below, have you guys had mites? How did you eradicate those mites? Because mites can be like termites. If Popcorn gets them, chances are Rosie's going to get them because they're in the same room. If I bring another animal in here, they're going to get into that. There are a couple of ways you can get rid of the mites. I know I think it's called terrestrial mites. Like I say, I've never had to deal with it, so I don't know. But I know full well her humidity is wrong, and that's possibly the reason she's in the water dish. So my next job right now is to up the humidity. And the way I'm simply going to do it is I've got my spray bottle with RO water, temperature controlled. So I don't want to put ice cold water in that enclosure for it to heat up really quickly. If she comes out of that water when it's cold, there's going to be a temperature shock and everything. So I've got that water at 80 degrees. I know it's a bit on the cooler side, but it works. It's not as cold as it was. And I have a snake hook. Let me show you the trick for this. My little thing is dead simple. She is on a thin layer of cocoa fibre. She will be getting an awful lot more substrate now that I'm diving into enrichment an awful lot more. but I'm simply just set the water bottle onto spray. That's not on spray, there we go. Give it a good spray down. Now, the thing with cocoa fibre, the water tends to sit on the surface quite a bit. So I then get my snake hook, lie it down like that and run it underneath, and it just mixes it all up without actually moving it into a big pile, and then the water can separate between all the layers of the cocoa fibre and it doesn't ruin anything. But there you go, and you can tell just there it looked like the cocoa fibre had enough moisture in it, and it never, because it's bone dry once again. So to go over it again. Now I'm only doing this side at the minute. I'll go over and do the other side, the hot side, and I'll do that a little bit more. Now I don't want this to be soaking wet, I just want it to be a little bit damp. I've also got water on this log here. There we go, just run it around. That's looking a bit better. Still not perfect, but a bit better. And plus, even if you've got a humid animal and he's struggling to shed, if you've got an arid animal and he's struggling to shed, you can just give them a humidity spike every now and then. You've got to think, the likes of bearded dragons, so to speak, they are an arid-ish species. They need a humidity of 35%. Once a month, there's no problem in giving them a humidity spike for a day or two. Let's face it, it rains in the wild, and they have thunderstorms and stuff like that. Especially in Australia, they have thunderstorms. Why can't you replicate that as a little bit of added enrichment? It's not going to harm your animal for a day or two. But that's the hot side, the cold side. Let's go over to the hot side. Hello, popcorn. I'll be out your way in a minute. Huh, check him out, he's sticking his head out a bit more, he's getting a bit agitated, so I don't want to be in here too long. But what I'm going to do is just spray down a little bit more, get a little bit more moisture in there, and then close the door. Just totally keep it closed for a good hour. Then I'll come back in and check the humidity. I'm hoping the humidity will spike to about 85% and then slowly reduce down to about 60% over the next 2 days. Basically, the moral of this story is quite simple. Keep an eye on the humidity. You now know all the reasons why your snake could be in the water dish. Now you'll also notice I've not taken her out of the water dish. I want her to come out of her own accord, or I want him to come out of his own accord, and that'll tell me that everything's gone right then. But it's daytime, he's lethargic because it's night time for him, if you get what I mean. He should be asleep about now. So I'm going to leave him now. I've upped the humidity. In an hour I'll check the humidity. If it's still not high enough for me, then I'll spray down again, and I might even block off one of the small vents just to keep the humidity in the enclosure, and just see how it goes over the next 24 hours. Keep peaking it or dropping it, or just play around with it. I've done loads of videos on how to lower the humidity, so if you want to learn all that, go and click onto them. That's the end of this video. Fingers crossed everything's perfectly fine. She's not got mites. I've checked her for mites. Her temperatures are absolutely perfect. She could be in the very, very early stages of shed, but I won't know that for the next 24 hours. If I start to go blue through the night, then I'll know it's shedding. And her humidity was too low for this species. So I've upped the humidity. Let's see if I can up it a little bit more, keep it at a nice 85 and then lower down to 60 over the next 2 days. I've learned to spray her down a little bit more now that the outside weather, all the temperatures around here have increased, which is drying her out a bit quicker. So I've learned to do that. That's everything. Guys, if you want to watch more videos, I'll stick a couple of videos just here. If you want to subscribe, click this down here, this little circle. And I really appreciate every single one of you guys. Peace out.